Let love surround you and keep you safe and warm. May the music in our hearts be a shelter from the storm.
Hello and welcome to Salinity Presents. We are here with Kai Fletcher from Mutiny Bay Blues on Whidbey Island, Washington. Welcome, Kai.
Hi, thank you.
All right, let's jump right into it. So what does your business do?
Our business is a farm. We farm predominantly blueberries, but we've been diversifying in the last few years. We started producing hay. We have a growing flock of sheep. We have a very much growing flock of chickens, and we grow mushrooms. And we spend a good amount of our time, especially our winter, making value-added products with our blueberries and with our mushrooms.
What kind of products?
We make granola. We dehydrate our blueberries. We dehydrate our mushrooms. We sell some things you can only find at our store, like our hot sauce. But what you'll find in Salinity is our granola, our dried blueberries, and our dried mushrooms.
Tell me, how did Mutiny Bay Blues get started?
In the early 2000s, my parents, my sisters, and I moved here to Whidbey from the East Coast. They wanted to get more rural, get in touch with the land, and so they bought this parcel of property right by their house. And at first it was just a fallow field, and some barley and wheat was grown. And it so happened that the soil is very acidic and generally good for blueberries.
Who else is involved in the business?
The important players, especially in the beginning, are my dad, Fletcher, and Ken Petrie. Ken Petrie has lived on the island for like 50 years, and he's been farming for that long. And he's got a huge database of farming knowledge and machinery and road building. And so between the two of them, they pretty much made this farm out of scratch. It's been a farm for like 100 years or so. It was a dairy at one point. It was growing potatoes. They had cows. The two of them, Ken on the tractor, both of them using their minds, built the roads, built a barn, put in the irrigation, and really just bore this farm out of. And then more people began to get involved. We had to get employees. My sister, Lauren, is working with the farm now. She does the books and the behind the scenes things. My mom comes and helps out, mostly with the customer front, and then I'm there.
And what's your role?
I could say that I'm farm manager.
How many employees do you have?
Year-round, it's me as a full-time employee, and my dad still does finance work. He works probably like 20 hours a week on the farm. And then it's like an amalgamation of part-time people. Depending on the season, it's very project-oriented, and sometimes the farm's kind of sleepy. It's pretty much just me and my dad. We also have a person that helps with the store and making granola. But in the summer, we have a fleet of 15 or 20 people. It used to be even more than that when we were purely handpicked.
Did you plan on getting into the family business? How did you end up back on the island doing this?
That's a good question. I realized I wanted to go to college, major in agriculture, environmental studies, biology, something to do with plants and soils and growing things. And after college, I had a brief stint in Alaska doing environmental work, soil surveys, vegetation surveys. After that, I was trying to look for a job that kind of suited all my interests and that I was passionate about. And as I was looking at these job applications, I was realizing that that could all be found on the farm. And the saying for planting a tree goes, the best time to plant a tree was yesterday. And the same could be said about blueberry plants or any farm project. So I was like, let's just get there and get started.
Nice. Okay, let's get into how the products are made, because I know you've also helped expand your product offerings in those 3.5 years that you've been back here. So let's get into the weeds a little bit.
Totally. We have a commercial kitchen that we make all of our products in. We built that about 4 years ago. And before that, we were using commissary kitchens found at the county fairgrounds, which are a great resource, especially for a growing business that doesn't have the capital to invest in a commercial kitchen. For a couple of years, my dad would schlep all the ingredients down to the county fair, make everything, and then you got to pack everything up before you leave. And that was great, but it kind of served its time as we were growing. And so then this commercial kitchen was built, and it was installed with 2 big commercial ovens, a large scale dehydrator that does 120 pounds of blueberries at a time.
What temperature?
125 for about 12 hours. And as long as the blueberries become 25% of their weight, then they're shelf stable. We really like to keep it like as moist as possible while keeping it shelf stable. Compared to the raisins you'd buy at a store, our dry blueberries are packed with flavor. Because of that, they don't have quite the shelf life. You have a few months. They still taste like a blueberry and they don't break your teeth when you bite into them, which we like.
Exactly. They're still kind of juicy. I keep mine in the fridge at home.
Totally. Yeah, they still hold on to a bit of that taste of summer. And then granola, we make in the commercial ovens. My dad created the recipe based on another recipe. It has no added sugar except for honey. It uses olive oil. It's a product we're very proud of. It's now stocked in PCC, which is really exciting. And PCC is the largest buyer of our fresh blueberries as well. PCC is a great market. It's kind of more localized over Whole Foods. I think they have 14 stores in the Seattle region. They've had a couple visits out to our farm just to see our farming practices. They're a good store. I love them.
I love going there.
Anytime I'm in Seattle, I stop in. Spend a good amount of money, but it's worth it.
Totally.
And then so another product that you'll find in Salinity is our dehydrated mushrooms. We started growing mushrooms maybe 2.5 years ago. I have to give the credit to my dad on this one too. I think he said, hey, we should think about growing mushrooms. I have to give myself the credit in that I built the whole room and did the research on how to actually grow the mushrooms. We're probably putting out like 50 to 80 pounds a week. And it's just a nice consistent income. It's year round. They're grown indoors, so it's not subjected to the weather. It doesn't slow down at all. And we stock local groceries, our own on-site store, some delis. They make sandwiches out of a pantry, Orchard Kitchen, Payless has a lot. And so that's been great. And then some of the mushrooms that don't get sold right away and they start to lose their freshness, we toss them in the dehydrator to preserve that, and then we can sell at any time.
And you also have them available through Whidbey Island Grown Food Hub.
Yeah, all of our products are available on Whidbey Island Grown, and we are one of the pickup locations too, which is really great. That's a good service. It's both direct to consumer and it's wholesale, so restaurants can buy in 5-pound quantities through that, or you can just buy in half-pound increments, the fresh or the dried, or the blueberries or the granola.
Amazing resource. And then you have tinctures as well.
We do have tinctures, yeah. So another way of preserving and enhancing the benefits of mushrooms, and you could go into a whole book on that, but depending on the mushroom, sometimes putting it through a dual extract, which would be an alcohol extract combined with a water extract, the, say, lion's mane brain cognitive function. We don't actually make those tinctures. We outsource that to Dylan Cotton. He just moved here from the East Coast. He has a lot of knowledge of growing and working with mushrooms. It also has this fancy apparatus that distills the mushrooms and extracts everything. So we give him the mushrooms and he creates them for us. And those are available at our store. And they're available on Wig, and they might be available in Salinity at some point.
Just looking for some space on the shelves. What different tinctures do you have?
We just have a reishi and a lion's mane. Kept it simple, and that's all we have for now. Those are the most benefit boosted compared to an oyster. An oyster, I'd say, is more culinary.
Oyster, just to clarify.
Exactly.
People assume meat, oyster, then it's a seafood.
Yeah, totally. And we're not selling live lions. It's lion's mane, the mushroom.
That would be great. Yeah, what mushrooms are you selling fresh?
The biggest sellers are oyster mushrooms, because they're very recognizable and they're probably the closest to a cremini, and the cremini is just what people grew up on. So we sell a lot of oysters. Lion's mane, we sell shiitake pink oyster, which is another variety of oyster, black pearl king oyster, which is slightly different type of oyster. What else do we have? We have chestnuts, peel, reishi, just for our dried product or going into our tincture. Oh, and mine occasionally. There's so many different types. It's sometimes hard to choose which ones to grow, and it's interesting trying to track trends and what people are interested in. And I'll push the limits with maitake, or even lion's mane intimidates a lot of people, and we'll just see what people are willing to try and cook with. It's been interesting. Even in the 2 years that we've been growing and selling mushrooms, I've seen a lot more people in tune and knowledgeable about what types of mushrooms there are out there and how to deal with them in the kitchen.
Right. Yeah, the exposure helps a lot for them and the availability.
It's a growing market for sure.
Do you have to harvest them within a certain time frame? Like, are you harvesting to order, or is it like, this is what we've harvested, we got to sell it somewhere this week?
Mushrooms, everything about them is extremely quick compared to any plant. Not that these are a plant at all, but compared to anything else you'd be farming, the lifespan and the growing stage is about 6 weeks, sometimes as fast as 5 weeks in total, depending on the weather. Warmer weather, and they ripen really quickly. So we can adapt depending on trends that we're seeing. January, February is kind of slow. We can adapt what we're growing within that. But the shelf life of a mushroom is like 7 days, maybe lion's mane a little bit longer. Once it's coming in, you harvest it, you pop it in the fridge. Luckily, people are are pretty consistent, and the restaurants we sell to are fairly consistent with their demand.
What storage tips do you have for somebody who purchases the store? What's the best way to get a long life?
Yeah, I think that having them in a brown bag that's somewhat breathable, but not just like on an open plate in the fridge. Plastic bag is not great. You don't want to trap that moisture in there, but they will dry out prematurely if you just have them on an open plate.
What's your favorite way to cook them?
Just saute, butter, salt, pepper.
High heat or low heat?
They cook for longer than you'd think, and you don't want to add the butter right away. They have this weird phenomenon where you put them in dry into the pan and they start excreting their own water, and so they won't stick to the pan. And it's going to be like a medium heat, and so they'll start excreting their own water, and then after about 2 minutes, you'll add either your olive oil or your butter and cook them up. And depending on the variety, I'm usually cooking oysters or shiitake. You cook them for maybe 7 minutes or so. With lines, when you can get really inventive, batter that and fry it if you'd like. We sell some to Osprey, especially in the summer, and they do a tempura, like vegan fried fish alternative with it. And it's actually really good.
And that's Osprey Fish Co. up in, for anyone who hasn't been yet, definitely go. I sell them oysters too. So is most of your diet mushrooms and blueberries?
Yeah, it's pretty high, especially blueberries. In the summer, a nutritionist would probably like scoff at this, but probably 5 pounds a day. Like my sugar intake is out the roof. Like literally, because I'll be on the line and, well, first of all, you got to do quality control. So
of course.
You're there, you got to know what you're picking and if you're picking it correctly. And often the hours can kind of run on, and it's like work now, rest later. And so you might skip lunch and say, you have lunch right in front of you. So you just grab a handful of blueberries.
Yeah, they have nutrients. They're very vitamin heavy.
Yeah, antioxidants, very good for you. Our blueberries are certified organic. There are no herbicides or pesticides sprayed on them.
Yeah, let's get into the meat of the topic here, the blueberries. How are you growing them?
We have, as far as species go, we have tall bush or high bush blueberry. So there's low bush and rabbit eye. You cannot crossbreed them, I don't believe. They grow much different from one another. The high bush is what we grow. Low bush is what you'd find in the Northeast. And rabbit eye can handle warmer temperatures. High bush needs like 500 to 800 hours below 40 degrees. So you have to be in a fairly cold climate, which has kind of been a close call this winter, where it's been so warm that we've been like, oh, I hope we get those, they call them chill hours. Hope we get those chill hours. We in Washington State grow high bush. Washington State, fun fact, is the #1 producing state of blueberries in the country.
Wow.
If you go up to outside of Bellingham or Macomb County or Skagit County, it's really impressive, and they just go on and on. And then on the east side near Yakima, there's a lot of blueberries out there. We're tiny. We have about 25 acres, and some of those farms have thousands and thousands of acres. Within the species of high bush, the reason you have different varieties of blueberries is you have a longer season and they ripen at different times. So in this order, it goes Duke, Draper, Calypso, which is a new planting for us, and then Last Call reels it in. Last Call is pushing it well into September, and Duke is starting pretty much July 15th, July 17th on the money. While we were pruning in January and February, which takes about 6 weeks, usually we prune off dead and dying parts of the plant or branches that don't look like they'll yield a lot. But this time on some of the plants, Last Call in particular was really flowering a lot, even in January. We're like, okay, prune off things that are flowering now because the next frost will kill that flower bud and it's not going to produce fruit anyways.
So you don't necessarily want them to start producing fruit earlier?
Well, it would just mess up a few things. We don't compete necessarily, but we have to work around the east side of the mountains in their production. They come like a month earlier than we do. And say that they're on schedule, we don't want to be a month early because then we're just selling at the same time and the market's kind of saturated. If they're a month early and we are a month early, that'd be all right. But last year, for example, they were maybe 2 weeks behind schedule when we were on time. And so in the beginning of the season, there was a bit of a pinch moving the blueberries. It worked out all right, but it was a little bit like, oh, I hope we can get these out and over to PCC because they have contracts with East Side markets and there's just too many blueberries, which is a good problem to have for sure.
It's time to share one of Salinity's favorite nonprofits. The Puget Sound Restoration Fund focuses on restoring marine habitats here in Puget Sound, including planting over 140 acres so far of the native Olympia oyster species. These oysters help filter the water and support the broader ecosystem in so many ways. This amazing nonprofit partners with many local groups, businesses, and indigenous tribes to improve the future for oysters, abalone, Dungeness crab, seaweed, and virtually every creature living in or near Puget Sound. Consider donating directly or volunteering with Puget Sound Restoration Fund. Learn more at restorationfund.org.
Oh, we forgot to talk about your other method of preserving them, freezing them.
Yeah, we could probably just say that about half the blueberries we pick are sold fresh, and then about the other half is frozen. All that frozen fruit goes through a few avenues. More and more of it is becoming dehydrated and then getting put into our granola or into our dried fruit bags and sold that way. A lot of it is also just sold frozen 3-pound, 1-pound bags at our store, at the Star Store, or wholesale to like bakers and restaurants. Freeland Cafe, Jupiter Coffee makes delicious scones with their blueberries. A lot of it is sold frozen. That's really nice because that spreads out the season. We don't need to worry about moving all these blueberries right now in July and August when things are chaotic. We're handing out blueberries January, February, March, even until June, right before the new blueberries come on.
So, more about the plants.
We have about 25,000 plants, which is about 25 acres. And about half of it is Draper, which is that second ripening variety. My personal favorite, they're all really good. They live to be about 100 years. So once they're planted, they're in for the long run, as long as you take good care of them, which we do. They like fertilization in the spring. They like pruning in the winter. They like weeding twice a year. We don't have to baby them, but they take a lot of extra care because they are organic. We can't just spray herbicide. They have to be hand weeded. Pruning. It takes 6 weeks to do all the plants, and we have about 10 to 15 people out there working. And it takes that long because each plant, one by one, is handled by a person. And for about a minute or two, this person's spending time, maybe sometimes 4 minutes, pruning it, kind of guiding its growth, keeping it going upright, keeping good airflow, good sunlight penetrating, keeping it from intertwining too much with the plant next to it. Each plant at one point each year has human interaction and like mindful human interaction. A lot of these large farms that I'm talking about in Skagit, Whatcom, they're producing a great commodity, but those big farms sometimes just have these tractor mounted, essentially like saws that just go down and they trim off old growth. And that's what they call their pruning. I don't even really know how you can have a good berry out of that. And our berries are massive, but they're still delicious and they're not overly watery. And part of it is the pruning. Part of it's our rigorous fertilization program, which Ken Petrie, the guy who I was mentioning earlier, who helped build this whole place, he planted the plants, he put in the roads, did the irrigation. He is still on top of our fertilization program. And so he times it. Fertilization is all about timing, and all these things lead to a really good berry.
What is he using for fertilizer?
It's a fermented wheat fertilization, and there's also like a kelp, seaweed, fish meal fertilizer that goes onto them.
Cool. But the end result, blueberries are still vegan.
Yeah, I have thought about that before, and depending on who you ask, I guess you could say that most blueberries are probably not vegan, especially organic blueberries, because most of them probably use a fish-based fertilizer.
Has no direct contact with the fruit.
No, there is no touch.
Just adds some building blocks to the plant. How long between planting a baby blueberry plant and harvesting the first batch?
Good question. So it's definitely with perennials. On Whidbey Island, we're surrounded by a lot of annual farms. Now you plant a seed and a couple of months later, you have a product. Blueberry plants, it takes about 3 years to actually get a harvest off of them. And it's not really until year 5 or 6 or even 7 that you see them at their peak production. So it's definitely a long game. But once you have that plant established, like I said, you got it for 70 years as long as you take good care of it. Like I was saying earlier, Calypso is this new variety that we've just planted. We ripped out an old variety that was kind of having some issues with this fungus, and it wasn't treatable organically. And that's just one of the costs of organic farming. We ripped out all the plants, which was kind of sad to do, and planted new ones in its place. And Calypso is going to fill that gap before the last call, which is super late, and after Draper. So yeah, we have to prune and weed those plants for the next 3 years without seeing a single berry come off of them.
Wow.
And you even have to go as far as stripping the bloom in the spring. They're very small. They're like 8 inches tall. They're very spindly, but they want to make you happy and give you some fruit. And so they put out these big fruit buds. If you let them get to a full berry, it would just sap them of all their energy. So instead, we'd rather see that go into the root system for the future.
So that's a huge cost involved in that decision to stay organic.
Yeah, 100%. But we think it's worth it.
Okay, so you do your pruning. What happens between the pruning and the harvesting?
With the blueberries, there's not a whole lot to do. There's fixing irrigation lines. The lines that hold up the irrigation sometimes get clipped during the pruning season. You got to fix those, but that's not a big task really at all. We're kind of laying low. And that's a big reason why we're trying to diversify, so that there's a more even workload throughout the season. In June, we'll start weeding again right before the season, and then we'll start getting the irrigation going once it gets dry. But until it gets dry, there's not too much to do with the blueberries.
Do you have issues with birds or other pests?
Yeah, they're definitely a bit of a nuisance when they have the potential to take like 30% of the crop. That can be considered a big loss for sure. And we've learned to live with them. Some farms do nets That leads to a lot of dead and trapped birds. So we don't go the nest route. We had a partnership, and we still do, with this robotic company that has solar-powered robots that mow your rows. And they're pretty funny, but they're nice. They save a lot of time. They also have like an outlet on the back, and you can plug a 110-volt plug into them. And so we put a little trailer behind these robots that are mowing, and we program them just to drive around. And they had those like used car sale dancing figurines on the back of them. And so they just like randomly drive around the field. And we've honestly tried so many things to get rid of the birds, to scare them away. We've done that, which had some success. We had a falconer come out for a little while, but that got expensive quickly, even though it was cool, that's for sure. If you see like a dog race, they are chasing like a fake rabbit on a track. And so we had that going up and down the roads for a while. We've had 16-year-olds driving ATVs around the field, just trying to spook them up. Lately, the last couple of years, we've kind of figured out that the best way to do it is just to beat them to the blueberries. Fruit's so abundant here in the summer. Birds have just their pick of what they want to eat. And they wait until the day that the blueberries are ripe to start eating them. And so as long as we get to them when they're ripe, then we beat the birds to a lot of them at least. We just accept a little bit of loss. I think they're invasive birds, but they're still birds.
Let's finish up with talking about the machine harvesting.
We have a staff of like 15 or 20 in the summer, and that's down from maybe 25 or 30 that we used to have. And that's because we do a lot of the harvesting with a machine. We harvest the majority of our fruit with the machine. We historically did it all by hand, and that's because you get the best product picking by hand. But the technology with the machines has gotten so advanced. It uses sensors. It has auto leveling. Essentially, when you harvest with a machine, you want to reduce the amount of drops that the berry experiences. If it does have to drop from the plant into the catcher plate, you want it to be as short of a distance as possible and as delicate. And the machines have become really delicate in the last few years. So we got a new machine a couple of years ago, and that has really helped. It's harder and harder to find consistent labor. And so the machine has really relieved us of having to find as much labor. And then we have the humans working in the barn, mostly sorting. But that is not to say that we don't hand harvest still. A lot of the fruit that you buy on the island at our farm store or at the local grocery stores around here are the hand harvested berries. Most of the machine harvest goes off island and into our frozen area. So if you're buying at our store, or if you're buying at Star Store, or Payless, or Foxtail Farm Store, you're going to be buying a hand harvested blueberry. The machine harvesting is super interesting, actually. And if you want to see how it works more and you live locally, I encourage you to come to our farm tour at Labor Day weekend. It essentially drives over the plants, kind of vibrates the plant a little bit, and then the berries fall into these conveyor belts and then put into trays.
Why don't you just describe what the machine looks like?
Okay, well, it's right behind me right now, so I'll just look at it and describe it to you. There's 4 wheels. There's a platform about 10 feet off the ground, and you, or the driver, and 1 or 2 other people are on top of that platform. And you drive from up there, and the berries eventually make their way up there. The machine drives over the blueberry plants. It has these large ticklers that tickle the plant, and when it's tickling the plant kind of vigorously, the berries drop off the plant onto these slanted, we call them catcher plates, and they are spring-loaded so that as you drive over the plant, they move around the plant, but then close up any gaps so blueberries don't fall through the cracks. Those catcher plates are at a slight angle so that when the blueberry lands on the catcher plate softly, it will roll right into a little conveyor bucket. And the conveyor bucket brings the blueberries up to the top deck, 10 feet above the ground, where it goes onto another conveyor belt. And that conveyor belt you can sort from. You're taking out bird strike blueberries or too small blueberries, or blueberries aren't quite ripe, and then they fall into a tray, and that tray gets stacked in the back of the machine. I think the max I've had on there before unloading was about 5,000 pounds of blueberries. The whole upper level of the machine where there's 5,000 pounds of fruit lowers down to the ground, and then you can offload it. And it's pretty insane to look back there and see the weight of a car in blueberries that you just harvested.
How much do you harvest in a day during the height of the season?
A day will probably max out around 5,000 pounds.
Just 5,000?
Just 5,000, yeah.
Okay, and so even when it's machine harvested, it still goes through, sounds like 2 different human sorting and quality check.
Yeah, but you want a lot of human eyes on it, but you don't want that many human hands on it. A couple things happen. When you see our blueberries, you might notice that they have like a bit of a baby blue on them still. That's called the bloom. It's a yeast layer found on the outside of any fruit. But that bloom acts as a bit of a preserver, and it helps the berry stay fresher for longer. So the less you touch it, the more that bloom is preserved. And also the less it drops or feels pressure, the less internal bruising occurs, and then the shelf life stays nice and long, and they stay fresher tasting. We want to get it off the machine as quickly as possible. You don't want blueberries to stay in the heat for very long. But we have a rule. Once it hits 70 degrees, we stop picking for the day. And you can't harvest a blueberry with any dew on it. So you're kind of sandwiched from like 7:30 a.m. to some days like noon or 1 o'clock. So So you got to do all your harvesting right then. It's go time because you need to get the fruit off the bush, but you want to not get it off the bush when it's warm out. And I'm not complaining because that means you don't have to work in the rain or too much heat, which is kind of nice. And so it gets in the barn, goes to the sorting line. We have 12 or 14 people working the sorting line, filling clamshells or bags or boxes of frozen. And then it gets shipped out to PCC or a local market or our farm store. Our farm store is right on property, which is convenient. And it's really popular. And we really appreciate all the local people that go there. Sometimes there's a line of like 40 cars in the morning and we have to open early just to keep it from being a hazard with the highway, which is really fun. If you're listening to this, you don't need to get there that early. We will not sell out of blueberries. It makes our life less stressful and the roadway safer. We're open Thursday through Saturday, 9 to 1.
And year round, you have more than just the blueberries. Like, I love going there for the jars of pickle juice from Brit's Fermented Foods.
Yeah, we have a sister company, Brit's Pickles. We carry their stuff. We carry a few other local products. We have salmon from Sling & Salmon. It's caught in Alaska, but the fisher is local. And then we have all of our value-added products. We have a lot of cute blueberry-themed children's clothing and other knickknacks like that. My sister has a 3-year-old, and so anything that she likes to buy for a 3-year-old ends up in the store too. In the summer, you'll find fresh vegetables, and that's from one of two places. One of those places is Foggy Hill Farm, who's a friend, a local farmer. Great vegetables. We stock her stuff and Rowdy Sprout Farm products. Rowdy Sprout is, I guess you could say, an incubator farm. It's within our farm. They're a new farming group, Kirsten and Tommy. Kirsten works our farm store and she helps make granola and some other things around the farm. They farm a couple acre plot. Definitely worth checking them out. It's really nice having a brick and mortar store where we can sell our stuff year round. I really appreciate it. I work maybe one day a week or one day every 2 weeks. It gives me an opportunity to interact with the people that are buying our products, and I can get feedback and they can just see the face of the person that helps make it all happen. And so I really get a lot out of that. And the other reason it's great is we can be a space for other local producers that maybe don't have a brick and mortar shop.
And you're right next to Jupiter Coffee, so you can get your
Yes.
fresh blueberries, then get your latte and your blueberry scone.
Yep. Jupiter Coffee is amazing. Laura and Bryce run a great shop. They're tenants of ours, and we couldn't be happier with them being there. Above the store is affordable housing that we built. We built a duplex, and it has two two-bedroom units, and then below is our store. So it's a little village that we're creating over there, which I really like, and Jupiter brings a great energy, and the people that live there are really amazing.
Is the housing intended to be for your employees or just for anyone in the community?
It is not intended exclusively for our employees, but we'd be more than happy to have an employee there. All the people that work on our farm have housing at the moment.
Do you wash the blueberries, or would that get rid of the bloom that you were talking about?
That would get rid of the bloom. And also, we don't want to harvest the blueberries when there's dew or in the rain. If there's any moisture on the blueberry, once it gets packaged away, it quickly becomes moldy. So we don't wash them. If you want to wash them when you get home, feel free to. I don't. And we have really good, clean sanitary practices here. Everyone's gloved up and washes their hands thoroughly. And it's a clean product. Since we're organic, there's no harmful sprays on the plant that you have to wash off and worry about. It's really nice and refreshing to be able to just eat something right off the plant. Because sometimes I'll go to like raspberry farm and they're conventionally grown and it's like there's some nasty stuff sprayed on this thing probably.
Besides eating them fresh, how do you like to eat your blueberries?
Smoothies. We sell 30-pound boxes of frozen to stores. And I just take one of those home probably every 2 months. I had some pancakes this morning. That was good. Fun fact, you don't have to warm up the blueberry before you put it in the pancake. It'll melt. That was something that I was kind of surprised to find out.
I sell a really great hazelnut pancake mix.
You sell one?
Yeah, it's made down in the
nice.
Willamette Valley, Hazelnut Hill Farm. Just nutty enough that it has its own flavor. But that plus blueberries. I need to make that soon.
That sounds delicious. Yeah, I could see the hazelnuts getting overwhelming, but if it's just a little subtle thing.
Yeah, it's just...
We just planted hazelnut trees.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we just planted 10 trees, which is nothing compared to the blueberries, but we'll probably sell the product in the store. Why not?
How long is it until those are ready to harvest?
That's faster than most nut trees. Like a walnut tree is sometimes up to like 10 years. But a hazelnut tree is, I think, like 2 to 4 years, and you start getting hazelnuts. They grow pretty quickly. And they're really suited for this climate. They're one of the best nuts to grow around here. Look for some hazelnuts in the store, unless I eat them all. Another thing that I should mention is we grow hardy kiwis. We have 3 acres, which is not a small amount of acreage for those. They're pretty young still, so they're not producing a whole lot, but we were selling the kiwis in our store this last year. They're like a small version of a kiwi. They grow like a vine, so they're trellised at about 8 feet off the ground, and you bite into them, and they're the size of like a large grape.
I heard they're referred to as like a kiwi berry.
A hardy kiwi berry. And they're an impressive plant. They can grow like 10 feet a year. All right, so lost service there, but this is a continuation of the interview. Things that we're looking forward to in the future are laying hens. We have just 150 or so right now, but we're getting 300 more, and then we're getting 300 this fall. And we currently have enough to only fulfill the needs of our store. But once we get up to about 1,000 is what we envision, we're going to start selling at Payless and other local grocery stores. 1,000 hens produces a couple hundred dozen a week, and so we'll need some more outlets for sure. We're just excited about the growing practices of the hens. They're pasture-raised, so that means that each bird has 108 square feet at least of outdoor space throughout the year. And they're rotationally grazed, so every day or two, you're pulling the coop along the field. They help clean up the pasture, get rid of harmful bugs, eat down some grass, spread their manure throughout the pasture, and then you move them before they can do too much damage to the pasture, which would be eating grass down too low or eating too many bugs, etc. As they're rotated through the field, they're just boosting the fertility of the field. We're going to produce some really good eggs, and every couple of years you cycle out the flocks. So we'll have a lot of hens for sale for meat. They're organically fed, and we don't feed them corn or soy. And what not feeding them corn or soy does is it really helps the omega-3 to 6 ratio, which helps with inflammation. It's good for overall body health. In sourcing this feed, when we had just 100 or so, we got it from a local place called Scratch and Peck Feeds, which is a really good source of feed. It's made up in Burlington. Most of the grain that goes into it is grown in Washington, but it's pretty expensive. And we have a big commitment to local food, obviously. We're a local food producer, and we like supporting other local producers. And so we got in touch with EB Road Farm, which is a farm up in Coopville. And they are a 5th or 6th generation farm, and they specialize in grain growing. And so what we're doing is we bought a large 4-ton mill, a hammer mill, and they're going to be growing organic peas and wheat for us. And then we're getting from a nutrition company that supplies all the minerals and other parts and pieces of feed for chickens that goes into it. And we're going to start making our own feed with fully 100% Coopville grown grain, which is maybe 20 miles from us. So that means if you're buying our eggs, you're buying hens that grew up and were raised completely on pasture, fed completely organic feed that was grown on the island. So that's pretty special. We might start selling that feed to the public, and you can swing on by with a bucket or a bin and fill up what you like, and we'll sell it by the pound. On the topic of new things that we're also adding, our hay fields are becoming ever more productive, so we'll have more and more good quality hay for horse, cow, goat, sheep owners. And we're also growing our own flock of sheep. We have 7 at the moment, and then we're picking up another dozen or so this fall. So we'll be around 20 going into this winter, and then we'll start breeding our own stock. We're going to be breeding them with an emphasis on meat quality and then a second emphasis on wool quality. Not sure what we're going to be doing with the wool. Another great thing that EB Road Farm is doing is they're starting their own fiber mill. We'll probably process it there, and then we'll see what happens with it. But yeah, we're going to grow our flock of sheep to about 100 ewes, which produces 150 lambs each year. And those will be grass-fed, pasture-raised, rotated, and similar to the chicken feed, chicken eggs, a pasture-raised, grass-fed lamb makes a really good-tasting lamb that has a good omega-3 to 6 ratio. With the lamb, we're probably going to make it into sausage for the most part, and we'll also sell cuts. My brother-in-law has Greek roots, and I'm going to be workshopping a Greek lamb sausage recipe with his dad, and we'll see what we can make and if people like it. I think lamb, getting a whole lamb chop or something like that can kind of be like a lion's mane mushroom. It can intimidate people. They maybe want to get it out at a restaurant, but they don't want to cook it up at home. If we make a really high quality sausage that's not hiding anything, it'll be delicious and yummy and convenient for people. Please come check us out at our store. Thanks for this interview, Emily. I really encourage you to come to our tour, which is Labor Day weekend. It's $50, and you get to pick blueberries yourself, and you get to see everything from the ground up. Okay, thank you so much. Bye.
If you'd like to support other small businesses from the Pacific Northwest, head over to eatsalinity.com. That's EATSALINITY. You can also shop in person if you're here on Whidbey Island. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, subscribe, and tell all your friends. This podcast is hosted by me, Emily Wilder, CEO of Salinity Seafood More. It's edited by Luke Hagopian and exists entirely to eventually bring everyone to the topic of our native Olympia oyster species. Please help increase demand and appreciation for this beautiful oyster by asking for it everywhere you find oysters.
Our love is like an onion, many layers.